Now we're living in a world where everybody's a newsman or newswoman. To me, it has opened the door for the truth to come out faster. So no, it's hard to control that. And that is the reason we're learning so much about UFO, UAP, the intelligence, the sentient being, because that has been there. We are becoming aware of it because we are ready to embrace that. We are ready to merge with it.
I'd like to welcome back to the show returning champion, Shahnaz Soni. How you doing, Shahnaz?
I'm doing great, Alex. Thank you, by the way, for bringing me to this gathering. I'm just blown away from all the people that you have attracted. The amount of love that this show, I don't think I've ever received that type of love. Like, even like pages and pages. I mean, it was just pouring, and not from just one place, all over the earth. I'm like, holy shit, this is really big what you're doing. And I'm so grateful that
Oh.
I'm connected to that stream of love.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. Yes, our last conversation did very well. I still remember your email like, what is happening? Oh my God. And I'm like, calm down. It's gonna be okay, Shahnaz. It's gonna be okay. I have to talk you off the ledge because you're like, I don't understand what's happening. This is insane.
I know it's like, you can talk about lying all day long, but when you have to actually see it, really, that's how it
Yeah.
felt.
Yeah, and it was wonderful to watch from my point of view, because when we bring people on the show, we shine a light on them, and we shine a light on the work they're doing and the message that they're putting out into the world. So we're an amplifier in many ways. And when you reached out to us to be on the show, you know, my wife and I both looked at you and we're like, oh yeah, absolutely. That's we within 10 seconds, we're like, yeah, bring her on. It was a feeling. It's a feeling, it's an instinct, it's a inner thing. And then when I met you, I'm like, oh God, this girl has no idea what's coming towards her. She has no idea. I thought it was going to do well, but I didn't think it was going to explode the way it did, and continues to go, by the way. Still has traction like crazy. But you just kept emailing, what is happening? What's going on? I don't understand.
I know it's almost like you say, be careful what you wish for, right? And it was like yeah, I mean, and the funny thing is, the reason I learned about this episode being aired was that day on February 11th, whatever that date was. I'm basically having, like, I'm with my boys and my phone keeps pinging. It's because I have my business email is getting a new sign up, and it was happening like it was happening more, like, so many times within a minute, that I was like, these contractions are too close, for the childbirth. I'm like, I knew right away that you've done this, right? Because it's like, holy shit. It was like the phone was blowing away. And I'm like, yeah, it was like,
Well,
wow.
I'm so happy. I'm so just glad for you. So truly glad that I could help you on your way. So I wanted to bring you back. We usually don't bring back people so early after we have them on the show, but there was so much we could talk about, and I could talk, and we'll probably have you on another 5 or 6 times. I mean, it's just, and if not more, because I love talking to you, and you have such a unique perspective from your amazing story that you shared with us, and how you came to where you are, what you've discovered along the way. But we touched upon something in the last episode, which was the first time I'd ever talked about it on the show, which was UFOs, UAPs. And I stayed away from it because there is a big stigma attached to UFOs, little green men from Mars, UAPs. It's kind of very tinfoil hatty, very conspiracy. So I tried to stay away from that, but I obviously believe that there's life on other planets. There's life around the universe. It's inconceivable to me that a source consciousness would just create little old us, and just all this space, just a wasted amount of space that nothing's going on, makes no sense to me. So on just a logical standpoint, that makes sense. Now, them traveling here, traveling there, all that kind of stuff, that's the gray area, which I wanted to kind of dive into with you. So I mean, you are obviously a NASA rocket scientist, and you work at NASA currently, and you're working on which mission is it?
Artemis.
The Artemis. Thank you. The Artemis mission, which
Yes.
is it's putting people on the moon again. Like we're building space stations there and all that kind of stuff. So I've heard different things from different astronauts who've been in space that they've heard things or seen things. From a NASA from a NASA point of view, what is their take on, I mean, from being in the inside, what is their take on UAPs and UFOs? Because it is something that is government agencies have now come on. There's been congressional hearings talking like, yeah, we've seen them. Here's the video. We don't know what it is. So it's really coming out of the Area 51 Roswell world and coming more
Right.
into the mainstream, more into the zeitgeist of humanity. So I wanted to hear what NASA's point of view, if there's even one from someone who's working on the inside.
So, it's interesting, right? Like NASA as an organization, they never really, like, at least I have never heard like making them a statement. I think that maybe they are making it now, but in the long, I mean, you don't hear that. But when you talk, every single person that I work with, most of them are Trekkie, right? They love Star Trek, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
think about that right there. If you love Star Trek, means that there's something that is resonating with you because you actually relate to that. I actually watched Star Trek when I couldn't even speak English.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And I
of course.
related to it, right? So I related
Mm-hmm.
to it. I loved it. I mean, there was something about Star Trek that I was like, I felt that telepathically, I just felt like I have been there or something, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
point is that that information is we all have within our DNA. So in general, when I meet with people, and just like I meet with you, right? People are very much like 100% aware that there is more to the story because nobody would be working for NASA technically if you think about it because it's all about space exploration. And usually you're not excited about exploring the cosmos if you're not going to meet any sentient being. I mean, why would you want to do that, right? I mean, there has to be some excitement
I'm
because any
exploring for old rocks. Yeah, we're looking for rocks somewhere. No, you want to meet an alien. You want to meet an
you want
alien.
to
You
have
want to
some
meet.
you want to have yeah you want to have some curiosity, and same goes with under the ocean, right? To me, as above so below. So the thing is, and we have already had stories that kind of have been proven by different people, whistleblowers and people who came, like, because a lot of time people are not able to speak openly about something that they're not meant to broadcast to the world because the world is not ready according to the leaders or whoever makes that observation. And that's how I think the world has been running. But the good thing is that people are realizing that we are not, everything is not what it seems to be. We are
Mhm.
realizing that there's what you see and there's what really is. Like,
Mm.
now you see, now you're not. Like, if you think about it, it's like a hide and seek game is being played at a mega level, right? And selling of a perception is being played at a mega level. So think about it, like if you have a technology where you can make people see what you want to see,
Mhm.
that's what's going on. And that's, I'm talking about, like, of course there is mind control and other aspects of things, but it's a little bit of all of that is playing the role in the background. So when you say UFO, right, unidentified flying object,
Mhm.
UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, I don't think it's unidentified. I think it has made to appear to be unidentified as more like that's what you want to broadcast.
So you're saying that when they put those labels on it, that's the public eye, but they really do kind of understand what's going on behind the
I mean, they
scenes. If they're
identified it. That's why they made it unidentified for us. That's how I see it. It was picked up. It was picked up somewhere. It was picked up somewhere, and then they had to make sure that they wiped the evidence. That's how I see it. That's how it has been expressed.
Yeah, I mean, it seems that like even the videos that they've shown in these congressional hearings from the government agencies themselves, I mean, the footage is pretty dramatic. I work in visual effects and worked in visual effects in Hollywood for a long time. So I know what a good visual effects looks like, and I can tell when
Mm-hmm.
someone's kind of manipulated something. It's not easy. A lot of people think, oh, it's easy.
Okay.
They just do that. It is extremely difficult to create a illusion of the eye convincingly. It
Really?
is. I've worked with some of the highest end visual effects artists in the world. Worked on every big $1 billion, 200 million, Star Wars and Marvel and everyone. And I've been a visual effects producer as well, so I understand the details of what it takes to pull the wool over somebody's eyes. The amount of the it's just so difficult. I can't express how difficult it is to do it right. Because if you watch certain big movies, you see mistakes. I do because I have a trained eye. I'm like, oh man, they didn't render that properly. Oh God. So
Okay.
so that's that. I wanted to throw that out there for a lot of people because a lot of people think, oh, it's just something that they could do now with computers. It's not easy. And the stuff that they were showing, the kind of motion, the kind of um the tracking that would be needing, it would be such advanced visual effects software that I haven't seen yet, or at least Hollywood hasn't seen yet, that would be needed to kind of fake a lot of that stuff. In my humble and professional opinion.
Right, right. Okay, so that's interesting, right? So now let's think about when you want somebody to believe in a different perception, right, than the one that, so you are technically selling, we all are selling a perception to some extent, even because subconsciously, right? But we're talking about somebody who deliberately does it, right? So there's one way you do it is through the mind control, right? So that way
Mhm.
you can make them believe something because you have given them some sort of narrative, right? Because we are, you can reprogram your DNA, right? So you're given a narrative and you are taking that and making it your own. So it's almost like somebody doesn't have to do a lot of work because now you're going to create your own imagination, but it's going to match the perception they're selling, right? So that's one way of doing it, which is probably happening at a mega level. The other way, like David Copperfield, right? I was
Mm.
very amazed by him, right? Right? I mean, I'm like, wow, how can you make people see whatever you want to see? Now, that's
Mhm.
a very interesting way of selling a perception.
Yeah, and that's sleight of hand, misdirection. There's a bunch of things that magicians do. I've studied and worked with some musicians over the years, so I kind of
Oh,
heard
really?
and understood a little bit of what they do and how they do it. It's masterful. It's a craft. It's a craft and an art craft. Some better than others with it, but it is possible to do. I mean, some things that I've seen, I'm like, how the hell did they do it? And then they show you behind the scenes how they do it, and you're like, well, hell, it was so easy. It seems so simple, but yet so difficult. So all right, so from NASA's point of view, they don't say a whole lot about it yet. But what have you heard in the hallways from your colleagues? We kind of mentioned a little bit about every time there's a launch, there's certain things that happen. Is there anything that at the water cooler that the engineers talk about, or they say something that's not something that's really talked about? I mean, then you could say, obviously, I don't want to get you in trouble.
Right, right, right. That is the thing that generally, that is the thing that people are, like, I mean, you have a certain credential that gets you into these positions. So for the most part, you are kind of it's almost like, I don't want to use the word trained monkey, but you see my point. There's a certain pattern that they look for in a people to be in a place like that. And for the most part, I think people are very like scientific minded. Like majority of the people that I run into, they're so scientific minded sometimes that it's like if they don't have the proof according to them, then no
Mm,
matter what, they are going to keep denying it, even though they're going to watch the Star Trek all day long, but they don't really connect the dot. Like they don't think that if you're so taken by this, maybe some part of you actually lives in that reality. You see,
mm,
that is not the way they see the world, right? So that's, I'm talking about majority. But the interesting thing happened to me was that I had people who were non-engineers, but their parents were engineers with top secret clearance, or they actually were child when they overheard a conversation that their dad was talking to the admiral. And then they would come and tell me the story of things that they saw that they were not supposed to see, right? So it's kind of an interesting thing that how I hear from people who are not in the system because
mhm.
they were not given the they didn't
They're
sign the
adjacent. They're
yeah,
adjacent to the system.
yeah, they're adjacent to so for whatever reason, at least for me, that is the way I heard things that were like, some one person said that, yeah, there's definitely graves, the alien that are like, 4 foot or whatever. All of that 100% exist, and partly they were crafted for a reason. They were crafted so that they can actually sustain the space environment. So when you really start thinking about that, Alex,
Mm,
yeah, that actually makes me think that, when you watch Terminator, right? Because past, present, and future, remember, they're pretty much, we're doing the dance with different dimension based on string
mhm,
theory. So,
mhm.
so the whole point is that when you feel the way, when you understand all of that, just think about, Alex, that isn't it our future self is contacting us because they already have gone that place where we are wanting to go because it's part of us.
Hmm.
communicating back to us.
That's fascinating. When I looked at some of the ships or the footage I was seeing, the movement that they were doing is so breaking physics in a way that we don't understand how, I mean, they're moving at such speeds and at such banking speeds and turns that they go so fast that they would destroy any human being inside of it because of just G forces and just general laws of physics. But from what I understand, is that inside of those potentially is basically another atmosphere, another environment inside of it that is almost irrelevant to the exterior environment there. So they're kind of like, no matter how fast they go, how sharp of a turn it is, it doesn't affect them internally because they've learned how to not deal with the gravity of the planet or something along those lines. Does that make any scientific sense?
Yeah, because so there are so many ways to looking at it. First of all, classical physics is not going to ever justify, right, what we're experiencing. And that to me has always been like, I truly don't understand that why you would discover quantum physics and quantum theory like over 100 years ago, and you are not teaching that to the as a mainstream science, right? It's almost like, because that gives you, like, I use quantum physics and I say that that gives you the power actually to make, you have a choice in this binary world, right? You can do whatever you want with your life. So that takes people away from like that victim mentality, because quantum physics brings the accountability in your life.
Hmm.
But going back to what we are talking about, the whole, it's to me it makes sense, because in the quantum world, or in the nano, when you get into the nano technology, right, things are
Hmm.
very, very small and we're not able to see it. So that just takes us in a whole different spin of what are the possibilities, right? When you think about quantum entanglement, right, which is all about, you when you're entangled with that, the time is no longer going to be the you know the variable, because two quantum entangled particles can affect each other. Actually, sometimes it can affect, like, the particle that they're actually putting the effect on is the other particle that gets the effect before even this one.
Hmm.
That's been observed as well, right? So
Hmm.
if you really think about it, then it just completely makes you question the whole speed of light. And then,
Right.
right, so all of that, and then when you converge that, and I have heard Bashar say that he had made a small documentary where he was saying that how location is embedded in our DNA. So when you start getting into that, then it just starts, and then the sentient being can actually be in a very small mass, right? So that takes away from, and then when you combine that with Billy Carson, where he says we can all fit in a 1 cube of sugar, right? So
Hmm.
you see all of these things, when you start thinking about it, it completely messes us up in a way, because one person, because we are 3D species, right, we are supposed to evolve within this physical reality and dimension. Because of this limitation that we are already born with, now we're talking about all these dimensions that we are actually not able to tap into while we are here. So it's a conundrum that we're dealing with. Like, what I'm saying is almost like you want to understand God, but you are a segment of it, right? So how can you understand something that you are not even able to access?
That makes, yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's almost like the ability, I mean, from talking to so many near-death experiencers, uh, the idea of telepathy is a big one. So there's no language on the other side. You just know. The download of information, you just automatically are plugged into the entire universe and all of knowledge of all time. So you're like, oh, quantum physics, completely understand that now. They can never bring it back because our hardware just can't handle it. But the other thing is too, is like when they think of someplace, they're there. It's the speed of thought, not the speed of light. So time and space don't exist on the other side. It's a completely different thing. You just are instantly there. And I hear that I thought again and again and again and again and again. So it almost seems like there's a version of that in this reality that you can tap into. There's still laws within the world of this construct, if you will. But there are ways to break those laws or at least bend them in a big way. Very similar to the Matrix with Neo. Neo understood the code and he was able to manipulate the code in a way that everybody else could not. Very much like a master yogi or an avatar like Buddha or Jesus was able to manipulate the code, manipulate this environment in ways that looked magical to others, especially like Jesus. I mean, walking on water, and which is, and you start talking about the yogic things, it's insane. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think the whole manipulation of matter is the alchemy, right? Is That's the spiritual alchemy. And the interesting thing is, if you think about it, that either you manipulate the matter or you manipulate the perception.
Right.
Both
And then,
cases.
so what's real and what's not? It doesn't really matter. It's like that scene in The Matrix. It's like, I know this steak is not real, but it tastes good to me, and I don't care.
Right. And you know what? Right. And then let's just take it even further. Okay. So another show that I would recommend is called Peripheral. You
Mm-hmm.
put a headset on and you are playing this video game, basically, that takes you into a different time and space. And also, everything that you do in that time and space, it actually is real because you are really going there because of the technology that they've invented, because they're showing a future that's 70 years away. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one aspect of it. So the very fact is that, remember, I mean, there are theories that we're living in a simulation, right?
Of
And
course.
if technically, right, if technically, let's say that we are wearing a headset somewhere and now, but because we don't see that part of us, because it's not one of those Call of Duty game where you only see two hands, you know what I mean? Therefore, we think that we are not, but we can be, because the advanced game can show you exactly so that you feel like you are truly living a real, because that's the whole intention of the game, is that you feel real about what you're interacting with.
Mm.
So that it just takes it pretty far.
So let me ask you, what do you think the spiritual implications are that we're starting to see more UFOs, UAPs, and talking about this so much more openly than we used to? It's still not very widely spoken about. It's still, I mean, I still remember, like, it was just, what is a year ago that this, a year and a half ago when they did the congressional hearings, and it was like a
Yes.
blip on the news. It was kind of like, oh yeah, there's UFOs. What? Like it just kind of like, it was like, ah, yeah, of course, because there's so much noise in the media, there's so much stuff going on, that it was just another thing. And unless literally an alien spaceship lands on the the lawn of the White House and walks out, that's not going to be front page news.
That's
So
true.
why do you think that this is starting to happen more and more now? Why are we getting this information more? Why are we more accepting? And what is the spiritual implications of all of this?
So I think one of the things is that our consciousness level has changed and is changing really drastically. Like, just in general, like how every single thing, like even the way everybody's perceiving time is changing in the last decade, especially, right? I mean, the whole 2012 Mayan calendar, and people were thinking it was end of the world, but it was end of the old way of living. So all of that has taken that effect, right? The ripple effect, and what we're seeing now, and what is coming is going to even change it, like, really drastically. Because if you really look at our evolution as a human species, that we were, like a caveman, right? Or how we went into agriculture, industrial, right? How did we get into computers? Things are happening at the faster level, right? The evolution, like in the last 50 years, what we have done with the computer, now we are dealing with AI. It's like iRobot is happening, right? So all of that exemplifies that how in every aspect of our life we are evolving. So technologically we are evolving, but spiritually we're also evolving, right? So therefore we're having these type of conversation. And when you really look at the fact that because of the evolution, we have like cell phones where every single person from all over the world now can make videos, can record something right away, and then we have internet where you can share all this information. So that has completely, like, we are no longer in this single point failure that we have been, where we were only expecting our leaders or mass media to tell us what's really happening. Now we're living in a world where everybody's a newsman or newswoman,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that to me has opened the door for the truth to come out faster. So no, it's hard to control that. And that is the reason we're learning so much about UFO, UAP, the intelligence, the sentient being, because that has been there. We are becoming aware of it because we are ready to embrace that. We are ready to merge with it.
If you're enjoying this conversation, I invite you to go deeper down the rabbit hole with me on Next Level Soul TV. It's packed with exclusive content like live special guest Q&As, daily podcasts, commercial-free access to the entire Next Level Soul catalog, early access to episodes before they air, and special meditations you won't find anywhere else. We will be adding new exclusive content every month, plus you can connect with me during my monthly live streams. Just go to nextlevelsoul.com/subscribe and join our soulful community today. I'll see you on the inside. Do you believe that there has been sentient beings that have arrived at one point or another on this planet in current day? Because I'm going to ask you about ancient history in a minute.
I personally think that ancient being has been here before even human, right? Like there has been that being that kind of is, like that falls in the energy of some people would call them God because they showed up in a certain way in our history that they exude God. And just, based on the God being omnipresent, right? We all exude God. But sometime when we see something like Jesus walking on the water, then because that is just beyond our imagination, we say, wow, that it represents God. You see?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
So do you believe it has, in your opinion, this is just purely your belief, nobody else's, no other organizations? I'm not saying.
Yes. No four-letter organizations.
No four-letter organizations, a point of view. Your personal point of view. Do you believe that we have been visited or are currently being visited in one way, shape, or form by sentient beings from another place? And if so, what does that mean spiritually for our evolution?
Yeah, so the first answer is yes. Mm-hmm. And what that actually gives a lot of promises for our evolution, because think about it, if there is sentient being that's actually interested in us, there must be something good about us.
Yeah, there's something we're interesting. We're interesting. Well, was it Star Trek? Okay, because I'm a Trekkie to a certain extent. Okay. I'm more Star Wars. Okay. But there wasn't. I watched all the movies, and I think it was Undiscovered Country or First Contact. I think it was First Contact. No, it was First Contact. Where it was in the past of Star Trek, and they were supposed to shoot this rocket off or something, and that rocket was what a passerby alien species saw and said, "Oh, there's a species down there that has been able to do this. They must be someone we should take a look at. They've reached a certain level of evolution that now it's time to go." So that in that movie, that made, when I saw that, I was like, well, that actually makes a lot of sense. Like, we did something so rudimentary that they're like, okay, it's time for us to go down there and talk to them. Is that something that you think that we have done at one point or another, that they finally said, okay, the evolution has come to a point where we should come down? Because I'm assuming if an alien spaceship landed during Mongolian, Genghis Khan days, they're going to throw arrows at us, and they're like, what's the point of this conversation? Like, Because
it's not that exciting, right? When you're fighting with someone that there's no chance of any kind of excitement, then it's just almost like, I don't want to waste my energy. This is going to be too boring, right?
Right.
There has to be a proper matching evolution level for them to even interact with us. But I would say, yes, 100%. Like atomic bomb, right? I mean, that was a pretty major, right?
Yes.
Right. And right now, like, thankfully, we haven't used any nuclear weapon, but think about it. And the only reason we haven't used it is because everybody has it.
Right. Yeah. All the big boys have it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, okay, you know what? I don't want to fight with you because it's going to be not a good fight, because I mean, I have no chance of winning because we're all going to lose at the end of the day. Right. I mean, that's where we are. So yeah, that definitely is there. But there's also the part of the story that we're not 100% clear on, right? Because, the whole evolution story, there's a Lucy story that comes from the caveman and our ancestry. Yeah. There is a Big Bang, right? Which kind of connects a little bit with that. But then there's all this religion have their own story on how we came into existence. And then when you really understand the Anunnaki and that story, which means that we were basically spliced in the lab and as a species. So all of these things are converging, right? Because not you got, even though you've read like many books and you understand all of these possibilities, and I do too. And at the end of the day, we're all kind of like deciding what the possibility is, because we do affect the quantum field because we interact with it. Our belief, right, perpetuates what we experience.
So we all are choosing the direction we're going. And it's not going to, and I've said this ad nauseum on the show. It's like we are going towards, we are shifting, but it's going to be rocky because there's a lot of old systems that are holding on, trying to grab on. And there's a lot of souls and people who don't want to leave, don't want to evolve, don't want to awake. They're like, no, no, we like the old way. I'm too scared of the new way. I want to go back to what I know. And there's that kind of tug and pull, and we have to kind of like bring them up with us with this new way. And you could see it. You could see, just turn on the news and you can see the light in the dark almost, or just not even bad or good, just two different energies that are fighting in a way.
Right. I mean, and it became more prevalent after the whole COVID thing happened, right? Because when people started doing remote work and the people who wanted to actually do more from life, they were like, my God, I love the freedom. I mean, that's when I did my book, by the way. It's because of that option I was available, that I had a little bit more time to do something because I wasn't spending it in driving, right? But that actually is what is creating this dichotomy, right? That people are choosing side. And I think that is how we are perpetuating the type of world we want to live in, the type of earth we want to live in, the type of people we want to live with. So all of that, our action is deciding. And that's the thing that I choose, right? So when I talk about reality shopping, which is the word I use very casually, because it's all about not just hopping reality, but shopping for one, making a binary choice consciously to perpetuate something that you want to perpetuate, because every action you're taking, you are making a habit out of it. You're actually programming yourself. You're reprogramming your subconscious by your action. So when you really start thinking about all of that, you're like, it's so important that you choose something that you want to do. And once if everybody does that, right? Everybody does that conscious choice, then we all can be that like Finding Nemo scene, right? Where where remember the fishes were trapped, and then Finding Nemo dad says that swim down, right? That's exactly what our consciousness wants to do. At the cellular level within the human, at the earth level within the 8 billion human, and then it just keeps perpetuating as above, so below.
Very much so. Very much so. Now, you mentioned something a second ago, the Anunnaki, which is recently one of my favorite topics to talk about. And it's something that when ancient historians, you can't even say the A word because they're just like, it's myth. It's myth. It's just stories. Yeah, they don't, and again, whether you believe it was real or not, it's just, there's a lot of things pointing to the Anunnaki. And not only the Anunnaki, but then the same story across cultures around the world all have this sky gods, light beings from from the sky. They all have a version of this story in different points of view, if you will. So that says something, because apparently we weren't supposed to know each other back then. We weren't supposed to be talking to each other back then. So how the hell, and like I tell people all the time, like, you and I can write a book right now pretty easily, but to tell a story for fun back then, let me get that stone out. Okay, let me get the chisel. All right, I just gotta, and it takes, I can't, there's no whiteout. There's no delete button. Like it was very intentional what they were putting down. So from your point of view as a scientist, even looking back at the Anunnaki story, which is from the Sumerians, Babylonians, that kind of, it's in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the oldest story known to man. I'm saying all these things, but I'm just saying it for the audience if they don't know this.
Right.
The Anunnaki were supposedly sky gods or alien beings that came down, saw us, and according to the story, is that they wanted gold to help their planet, and they weren't going to do the work, so they needed what's the species? A slave race that was smart enough to do the work, but not too smart to go too far. And they kind of found this Homo sapien running around, which, by the way, to my understanding at the time, there were multiple versions of humanoids, like Neanderthals and other kinds at the same time. But for whatever reason, Homo sapien jumped, like did a quantum jump really quickly, and basically became the dominant force on the planet. I'd love to hear your thoughts of that whole story the gene splicing, the breeding, because I understand they tried, again, this is from the story that I read, that they tried to breed and had many failures. That's where a lot of the myths come from, where the giants, cyclopses, these kind of ideas came from. This is what I hear. But but when one of the gods procreated with a woman, that was the very first one that made sense, and like, oh, okay, this is what we'll do, and all that stuff. So they did some lab work, they did some gene splicing. I'd love to hear what you think from a scientific point of view. It's such a fantastical story that's is in antiquity. I just love to hear your thoughts on it.
Right. And when you watch a movie like Prometheus, right? I mean, it really
Oh
hits home. That
yeah.
that to me was like, wow, right? But I think that all of that connects with everybody's story. So my understanding is that there is definitely a high possibility that we were a creation of a splicing, right? Because our DNA does have like first of all, they say that our DNA does have this non-coding DNA, right? Which is actually where all the information resides about what we were created kind of from in terms of, and there's a theory about this, that we were basically, like all the species that we actually project in the sci-fi movies were actually it's in our non-DNA, non-coding DNA. Then there's a whole thing about the wow signal. So wow, if people types wow under Google, the wow signal actually kind of proved that scientifically that our DNA have species that's beyond comprehension in the non-coding part of the DNA. That's what the wow
Wait,
signal was.
so what's the non-coding part of the DNA? I'm not certain. What do you
Majority
mean
of the
by that?
percentage of the DNA, I believe, is kind of they call it junk DNA.
Yeah, junk, right.
Right. I'm basically referring to that as non-coding because they call it junk because they couldn't understand what it was. But junk is not the right name. And just because you don't understand doesn't mean it's junk.
Yeah, because the entire planet, the entire universe has like junk in it. No, everything is so. If you just watch an ecosystem, watch it. Just go watch Discovery Channel for a minute and watch how the animal kingdom works. How perfect everything is in an ecosystem, from the animal, the predator who eats this, and if they don't eat
That's
this, then
true.
it
The
throws
whole
that
life
out of what.
cycle.
Everything is so perfectly built. You mean to tell me that our DNA, there's like, little junk in there.
Exactly. That makes no sense, right? And to me, whichever scientist came up with that name, they should have thought about it because, when I was watching the documentary of how our DNA does all the coding and decoding, right? I mean, when you
Mhm.
see it took about 200 years, hundreds of scientists to figure out like small, few scientists end up getting the glory, but there were so many scientists involved just to get to the point where we understood what gene is, what DNA is, what the entire shape of the DNA with the Jacob ladder. All of that was done with so much intricate step-by-step process over hundreds of years. I mean, 200 minimum. When I was watching the documentary, I was like, wow. So you're right. So the whole thing is, and still we don't understand the DNA is what I'm saying, right? Still,
Mhm.
we really don't understand because majority of the DNA that we classify as junk DNA is where a lot of information lies. And the wow signal basically kind of scratched the surface scientifically, pretty much saying that splicing is possible, is pretty much what I'm saying to you.
Yeah, it was a very a good possibility. And the other thing that was really interesting, I was talking to an a researcher in ancient civilizations, and they brought up something so beautiful, and I never thought about it, is that we as a species are not really well built for this environment. And bear with me. Animals don't get sick generally in nature. They don't get sick. I've had animals for years, they don't get sick. Only time they get sick is because of human interaction, human food, poisons in that we chemicals, things like that. That's when they get sick. Pets, I mean, or even livestock or things like that. But just animals in the gorillas in the mist are not getting cancer. Like that's just
That's
generally
true.
not a. And so there's that. And then we are hairless, so we're not really built for the sun. So if we're outside, we're gonna burn, while other animals have fur, have things to protect them from the elements. We are pretty wide open. We're not kind of built for it. The Neanderthal was much stronger than us, much, much stronger than us. And from my understand, had similar brain, a size of a brain. So it was a similar brain size, stronger than us physically. And yet we for whatever reason, and they were hairier too, from what I understand, they were more built for this planet. Well, I'm not saying we're aliens or anything like that, but there's something that happened in our evolution that just didn't make sense for us. If it wasn't for our brains, we would die off as a species. Our brain is the only thing keeping us alive, because then we put on jackets, we put on coals, we make shelters to protect us from the elements, while animals generally don't need to do that. So it's really fascinating to think about that.
Right. And I think that, yeah, and you're touching on the very interesting subject here because, the sustainability, the self-sustainability, the feedback loop, right? Like even our entire human craft actually works very beautifully when we get out of the way, right? Because it has a
Right.
self-sustaining system. I mean, we
Yes.
get fever because are meant to get fever because our body is trying to protect us from it getting worse than that, right? So that way we can do the right thing and it's basically triggering us to get an attention. So you are 100% right that it's very interesting because on one hand, we are a complex species with the brain, with the mind, and the mind is the reason we're survived. But I think mind is the reason we have messed ourselves up at the same time. Because if you think about it, in the process of surviving or in the process of going into technology, we kind of let our ego run the show. And that's why what happened was that people in this competition mode on have created so many mess because they prioritize money over love or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
the priority is not there. What should be your
Right.
priority? Like it should be love, not fear, right? Because based on quantum physics, everybody can have everything if they really want because there is plenty for everyone.
Of course, it's infinite. The universe is infinite. There's infinite amount of planets. There's infinite amount of, and then if you want to get into quantum physics, there's infinite parallel realities. There are infinite universes, and it just goes
Exactly.
on and on and on and on. There's no lack in the universe. There just isn't.
It's right. Lack is only in your mindset.
Correct.
And the thing is that and the mindset has been perpetuated and people have made that as kind of like their belief system, and I think that that is how we can break that pattern of going in this one extreme, because if we can come back where we can live with the balance equation. By the way, the book that I'm writing, I use the word balance equation and I explain that because it's all about making a choice in a way that the law of conservation of energy is perpetuating something that's self-sustainable. It has a feedback loop, just like you said that everything takes care of everything, like three beans, right?
Mm.
Like you, and that to me is the most beautiful dream of any scientist, right? Like because if you think about it, if you can create something where everything is being used in a way that, and that's how you can build community. That's how you can build everything from that perspective. So it's actually the where we all have to go. Because I think that they're actually even designing some video games, by the way, where they're making people realize that when you're going to work in collaboration, then you're going to have a better chance ultimately of getting where you want to go versus competition. Because if you think about ants, right? The only like ants can technically eat an elephant. The only reason
Mhm.
they can do that is if they can collaborate. There's no way one ant can ever do it.
Right. And there's never one ant that says, I want all the elephant.
That's true
I
because
can't,
that ant
I
is
can't
going to
eat.
explode. It can never eat enough for the rest of its life. So if you that's the mindset that we need, right? So I think that that actually is tied to quantum field, quantum physics, and whatever you believe in, it doesn't really matter. The idea is that you have to believe in the fact that when you tap into your own power is within you, then you're not taking away from somebody else's power. That's the
Mhm.
mindset that we want to perpetuate, right?
Right. Just because I get money doesn't mean that I'm taking it from someone else.
Exactly.
I mean, literally, if you want to think about money, money is created every second of every day, every time you insert money into the bank system. Our banking system is built that way. For every
That's
dollar
true.
you put in, they can lend out $10 on it. So they're literally making money out of air all the time, all the time. So there's literally an infinite amount of money in the world. There truly, truly is.
That is
Um,
true.
so it's when I found that out about reserve the
Yeah,
way
because
the
and
reserve
nobody
banking
has their
works.
money with them, right? I mean, no matter even if it's in your purse, it's truly not doing anything until you access it. So the whole thing about the money, like it's like right, and even people who are billionaire, or it doesn't matter how rich you are at a time, whatever experience you're doing, it's all a perception. The money is a perception.
Well, absolutely. I could all of a sudden say this is the rarest phone in the world, And the value of this, let's say I bought it for $1,000, but now it's worth $1 million. Well, where did that wealth come from? From a perception, from an
That
idea.
is true. That
It
is
was
true.
created. It was created out of thin air and brought to me based on what I might have or what the perception of what I have is. Why is one little piece of cardboard with a baseball player on it from 1932 worth $1 million? It's a piece of cardboard. It's
Right.
just a piece of cardboard. Why is a painting with some paint on it or a canvas with some paint on it, painted by a dude who cut off his ear, worth $80 million? It's perception. It is
That
all
is
of so
true.
it's all perception. So I'm bringing all that up because you look at things and I've been to a comic book convention. I don't know if you've ever been to a Comic Con, and
No.
it's amazing, amazing. You see, and you collect comic books, or you look at a comic book and you're like, oh, that's the first Spider-Man. No, it's a bunch of paper with ink on it.
But you give it a
But
value.
but people, not only I give it value, large groups of people have been told that this is valuable because of what story is in it or
That
what
is
artist
true.
drew it. It is absolutely not worth it. It's paper. It's only worth what you could burn for it for heat.
And isn't it? Yeah. And you know what? So you right now just hitting on something that I have to bring it up is that the value is kind of related to supply versus demand, right? And if you really think about it in this day and age, like movie makers or people who are like actress, they make so much more money that it's like there's just such a vast difference between them and like normal public, right? Like even normal public, like we're talking about doctors, even doctors come pretty low compared to what they make, right? So if you think about it, there's this very big dichotomy that why would we have to give so much importance to somebody who's pretending to do something to show you something versus somebody who's doing right in front of you the real thing? You see?
That's beautiful. I've never really thought about that. Yeah. So why should we pay George Clooney more to play a doctor and not pay the doctor more for doing the saving
That's
of the
already
life?
doing it, and you can watch their live show, and it's way more realistic, actually. And I mean, it is.
It's it's fascinating. No, I never thought about it that way, but you're absolutely right. Why? But that's a societal thing. That's like, why do we
That's the
devalue
societal
something?
thing. And what I'm hitting on is supply versus demand. If people are going to keep tapping into that energy, right? The one that truly is selling a lot of illusion, not really giving you the feeling of love, then that's what you're going to keep getting, right? So, how are we going to change that? Is by action. Like I was thinking when I drive from my house to my work, right? And I see all these fast food places. And if I don't want to support the fast food, then I should not eat the fast food,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, if everybody does what Shanaz is doing, what's going to happen is fast food is now going to make money selling the fast food. They may come up with multiple ways to solve the problem. They may say, we have to give a really healthy food now, right? And stay in business or go somewhere where people are still sleeping. I
Right.
mean, I know I'm being kind of a little bit exaggerating it, but you see my point. Supply versus demand is at play in everything in our lives. So we all are going to have to take that tiny action of only feeding into something that we really feel good about.
Agreed 100%. Now, going back to, you mentioned Bashar, who Daryl's a good friend of mine and has been on the show multiple times. I love Daryl and I love the teachings of Bashar. He's been doing it for over 40 years. One thing that he told me years ago, and I'd love to hear what you think, is that Bashar, as an alien entity that Daryl is channeling, could not come to Earth because his vibration is at such a high level that it would literally just knock us over, hurt us, because he's vibrating at such a high frequency that we couldn't deal with it. Very much like if you raise the frequency of a audio frequency, your ears start to because you can't literally handle that kind of frequency, or even on the body. You start
That's
throwing
true.
frequency at a body, your body can't handle it because it's not built to do that. What is your thoughts on that idea, the hypothesis that he presented, that an alien being would have to be at such a high level to reach the kind of knowledge and intelligence that he has reached, or she has reached, or it has reached, um, that they wouldn't be able to come down here at least and like hang out with us and have coffee. It's like not a thing. So what's your thoughts on it?
So it kind of goes back to how the frequency and vibration and everything comes into existence because of the vibration, right? Of the quark and leptons, if you want to look at it literally from whatever CERNs are doing to understand our subatomic particle existence, right? So based on all of that, when you weave it into the fact that there are beings like Bashar, that beings, they come from a different planet. They have frequency and vibration that is different. They don't exist in human form. We are in this human form for a reason. We are also in a dense reality, right? So our reality is much denser than other people, other intelligent beings. So of course, if they want to interact with someone like us, then the only way they can interact is that they have to either come down so much in that density, right? So that they can interact in terms of, the light and density show that we are interacting with, or they have to find a host, right? Or some other mechanism where somebody can become a container for them so that they can live in that body, right? Now, I feel like that when people are channeling like Bashar is, then it's kind of more like that they are basically accessing that energy stream, at the time when they're channeling. And depending on how much they embody it, right, they can either become 100% one with it, like Bashar, right? I mean, he completely transforms. Some people stay a little bit on the surface. So I think everybody has their own way of saying how much are we willing to let you in, right? Because it is a agreement that you're making, and it is a trust. I mean, it's a huge trust that Bashar and Daryl Anka has with each other. I mean, they're, but they probably made that contract eons ago, right? I mean, there's so much more to the story when you really start unwinding it. But yeah, I actually do believe 100% that every single thing that exists is the dance of frequency and vibration, and that's beings, that is, whether they're UAP or UFO or alien or star beings or extraterrestrial or somebody who actually participated in our creation. All of that boils down to the dance of frequency and vibration and different density and different dimension and different layers, right? And different way of perceiving the information. And the very fact that we are definitely in a lower density, and the fact that we're having this conversation means that we're doing pretty good. But it makes it harder, right? If you think about it, because while you're in this limited light vessel, it does limit your comprehension.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our hardware is limited. Our hardware is extremely limited comparatively to the knowledge of the universe.
Right.
It's extremely, extremely limited.
And how much light can you hold at a time, depending on how much permission you give yourself, right? How much, and that's what I think we need to open up for people is like, please, my God, give yourself a permission to be who you are meant to be.
And because I've spoken to, I don't know, 60 or so channels at this point in what I do, the common thread is that most of them had to prep their nervous systems to handle the frequency and the energy that comes in, because if not, they would blow a circuit. I even had people, channels who've come on there, like they've had a preparatory entity who was at like level 2 to prepare them for the level 5 that's coming in a year or two. And they had to kind of work their way up and build their tolerance up so they can, finally, like, okay, it's like lifting weights. Like you could only lift 5 pounds now, but you're going to be lifting 25 pounds in 2 years. So we got to work out. And that's what they would do. So again, what I try to do is connect those dots with these conversations. And I see where these things are starting to connect more and more as I talk to people like yourself and people like Bashar and Daryl and ancient civilizations and like healers and everything. It's really a fascinating journey. Shahnaz, I cannot wait for our next conversation. I'm so looking forward to it. You will be coming back for sure. I promise you, because I love, love, love talking to you. And you have such a beautiful perspective on the topics we're talking about, because you come both from a very deep, deep scientific background, but also a very deep spiritual background. And you're a unicorn in that sense. There's not many of you out there. So keep doing what you're doing, keep fighting the good fight, and trying to help people awaken. And I do appreciate for you coming on and for everything you do in the world.
Well, thank you, Alex. I loved it. I had so much fun. Thank you for taking me in this journey where we both completely got lost. Like I feel like we just get lost like children, right? And we had this like, what we started with and where we went, and now we are like, wow, we need to wake up because we have to interact with the other reality. So yes, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Looking forward for more excitement, and I'm so happy that you are holding the baton for all of us, because you exemplify. And I have to say this because you are not just helping people who have a certain a number attached with them in terms of how many followers they have. You're
Oh,
going with your heart and picking me up, because you wouldn't pick me up otherwise. So I'm just saying that I so appreciate you, because I have not seen that. And I think we need more to use our heart, um, and do it love based. So thank you for that. And yes,
thank you. Until next time, my dear. Thank you again.
yes.
Thanks for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue your journey, and don't forget to subscribe.